Um, my name is Chris Reese, Vice President of Customer Success at Cresta. And if you say it 3 times fast, it's good luck for a webinar. So, um, uh, in my role, I have the privilege of working with customers across all industries for Cresta, but including financial services. And I get to talk to leaders and figure out how they want to change the way their company looks with the use of AI. And so this is a very relevant topic for us today. And I'm joined by Jeff Woodland. Really happy to welcome Jeff. Jeff is the Senior Director of Industry Marketing at Five9. He has a special focus on the financial services sector. Jeff, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, I've been doing working in the contact center industry for a while. Literally, I remember BlackBerry was king, selling music was profitable, and it was okay to accidentally cough on your coworkers. And that was, in other words, 20 years ago. And if you had gone back to 2005 and looked at today's AI, which is really, the focus is on generative AI, it really would have seemed like science fiction back in 2005 when I started, because, you would be like, first of all, that technology is accessible from the internet. It has lots of flexibility in implementation. It's easy to use. It can actually understand what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to infer, such as and this happens all the time when I get stuck calling in somewhere and I'll be like, I'm babbling nonsense about a late bill thing, not my fault. I don't know how to talk in the lender's terms to the lender's IVR tree. And then what else? It's affordable. And, going back to 2005, that's compared to back then, AI that worked enough was high priced, it was inflexible, it was code heavy, and it was really only purchased by massive enterprises with IBM worthy gargantuan IT budgets back all in 2005. So yeah, I'm excited, Chris, to be here with you talking about what AI can do for changing the game in financial services.
Absolutely. And we've seen such growth in the sector as you just highlighted, and even this week as well. So I'm sure folks are very interested in what we have to speak about today. So a couple of things that we're going to cover today. Number one is key market insights, strategic approaches for applying AI to boost productivity and revenue, first and foremost. Second off, we're going to go through some examples of exemplary and lacking customer experiences in financial services, highlighting the impact of AI. And then thirdly, we're going to talk about some customer stories. We'll have some laced throughout the webinar today, and then we're going to end with a deep dive into a shared customer between Jeff and I, and how they leverage AI to drive some tangible results.
Awesome.
So
okay, so
yeah, so Jeff, let me tell you, in my role, I get a chance to talk to leaders all the time, a lot that are just starting to embark on their AI journey. And, one of the things that I've noticed is that those that are embracing this technology early and now are really starting to pull away from their peers in a pretty significant way. And, we've thought about a lot about why is that the case, right? Why is it that folks that are investing in AI, specifically in the contact center right now, are seeing business impact that goes far beyond the contact center? And it's almost illogical, right? I think in the beginning, when we started rolling out AI technology in the contact center, we said, great, we're going to improve some of these key KPIs that are very relevant to the contact center specifically. And then there's all these studies that actually say it means much more than that. And so we've asked ourselves the questions many times, why is this the case? And I'll boil it down to two that I hear a lot. Number one is that it's just a major investment area, particularly in human capital, right? There are a lot of folks in the contact center. It's a huge investment area. There are so many folks coming in and out, training costs, the cost of attrition as well. But additionally, it also holds one of the highest potentials for incremental revenue growth. The sales that come through the contact center, or even the service to sales motions that can be done if leveraging technology appropriately, can have a pretty dramatic impact for a business's top line, bottom line growth. Jeff, I know you have some stats here on the right, just some insights into market trends. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So Accenture released this excellent report called Banking in the Age of Generative AI. And it's worth sharing, which we've captured over on the far right of this slide, that companies excelling in customer experience achieve significant advantages over their peers. The research rested on three pillars. There was task categorization, which analyzed the tasks of 2.7 million banking employees. There's also the financial data analysis, which investigated financial data from 150 banks over a year, focusing specifically on revenue impacts from generative AI. And then there's also a staff expense review that assessed over 200 language-related tasks linked to banking roles and then evaluated their automation potential for productivity gains. So what did Accenture learn? Well, I do recommend reading the report, but here are three key findings. Early adopters of Gen AI in banking and financial services are projected to achieve a significant benefit over the next 3 years, approximately 22 to 30% improvement in productivity. There's also another improvement in terms of loyalty that increased by 6%. And then there was a 3% increase in the annual revenue growth. Now, when I look at that, it is important to look at the statistics and understand that they're looking at over 150 different banks. So that 3% growth is pretty impressive. Oh, and so I say, yeah, 3% increase in owner's equity. So back to you, Chris.
Yeah, it's very impressive. And it begs the question, why is everybody not doing this right now? Right. And I think, again, I think we have some answers to that. Well, first off and foremost, it's daunting, right? I'm going to enter this whole new world where there's a lot of great research and a lot of great, results that are being driven, but I don't even really know where to begin. And additionally, right, there are all of these causes, effects, and downstream impacts that inhibit a company from moving into a space where they're leveraging AI. One of the biggest ones that I want to highlight on this slide here is the sea of data that customers find themselves swimming in. We have access to all of this different data within the contact center. And if we don't have the right technology on top of it, it's really difficult to make sense. So the sea of data is being compounded by the legacy technology that companies are using, which fails to communicate the trends that are actually occurring effectively. And it leads to a lack of visibility in the contact center, but also it could lead to a misunderstanding of what is happening, which is almost even more detrimental, right? And so companies, I think, are struggling to make sense of this data that they have access to. And it leads to unsustainable costs and an inability to capture some of the revenue that is right there for the taking. I've got a couple of customer examples of some customers that we've worked with for a little while now, and I'll speak a little bit to the before, right? Before we started working with them. So we have a customer of ours, Snap Finance, amazing financial services company out of Salt Lake City, who experienced tremendous growth in the last few years, actually 40 to 50% year-over-year revenue growth, which is fantastic for the business, but they were struggling to make the cost work in the contact center. And the reason being is that, they've got supervisors and agents, and they're trying to get the supervisors to coach appropriately. But if you don't have a true understanding of what's happening in those conversations and the behaviors that the agents should be doing, it's very difficult to actually have an effective coaching session. Furthermore, like many customers, they invest in QA. How else are we going to get a good understanding without manual QA being done on a percentage of conversations? Ideally, a representative set of conversations. But the person power, the human capital required to actually do QA on a representative number of conversations is astronomical. And so again, like many, they end up doing QA on a small subset of conversations, maybe 2 or 3%, and hope that that is representative of the population at large. And frankly, it's not. So what that leads to is coaching that is potentially ineffective because it might not be what that agent actually needs, or worse yet, isn't aligned with the actual goals of the business. And so that's, I think, probably a scenario that maybe resonates for folks on the call that are early in their AI transformation. And I'll give you one other example, and this one I love. So it's a top 5 bank in the US who does a pretty complex negotiation call flow. They're actually this specific use case is in collections, and they're negotiating with customers to do right by the customer and make sure that the debt is being cleared in a reasonable amount of time. Now, the playbook for that group is critical because we're not talking about a very simple call flow. We're actually talking about how do you negotiate in a way that is both effective and serving the customer. And so they make changes to this call flow here and there and are hoping that agents adhere to it, and really just assuming that agents adhere to it. And I'll give you a little preview. When we started working with this customer, we were able to measure the adherence to the playbook that they had rolled out. And it was actually only being adhered to about a quarter of the time, when the expectation was that it was happening 100% of the time. And it's a really eye-opening, shocking moment for people to say, wait, I have this playbook that I've rolled out and I've emailed my team multiple times on it. We talk about it in coaching sessions, and yet it's not being adhered to. And it's just, 2 examples of some of the customers that we've run into. Jeff, I'm sure you've observed very similar pain points with your 5.9 folks.
Yeah, we have. The first one that comes to mind is a customer of ours called SumUp. They have contact centers in 30 plus countries with over 2,000 agents, and they're handling a massive amount of calls coming in, over 280,000 calls per month in many different languages. And their challenge that they had was their IVR. They desperately needed to add self-service options to take off some of that volume, but they just couldn't get it working. They had too diverse of a product range and too many large language requirements, and so the IVR tech itself was actually impeding their ability to have control over the volume of calls coming in, and that was impacting their revenue and creating customer churn, of course, but also employee turnover. Other things that we're seeing in terms of legacy technology is the sprawl that it creates in terms of maintaining and keeping everything integrated. And then from an agent perspective, when I sit down with a customer and I talk to their okay, tell me about your representatives in the contact center. How many apps do they have that they need in order to process, let's say, a loan application, all the way through from start to finish? And it's amazing to see how that particular agent has to be trained to remember what to open when and how one thing flows into another in terms of copy and pasting or creating a workflow afterwards. And so, it just contributes to the human fatigue and human error that inevitably is going to come back towards, that higher cost of having to find new people who are just frankly burned out from these old systems, or the customers who are being put on hold or may not actually get what they're asking for. So that's the things I really think about a lot. The other thing that I have noticed is that, for banks who want to provide the kind of the big bank experience, but they're a regional or a community bank or a credit union, is they're adding more digital channels, which is a good thing. But like Round Point Mortgage, they were also dealing with lots of volume, and they wanted to meet that customer demand to have new channels, and so they implemented web chats. Good, off their website. That makes a lot of sense in a lot of different ways. But their assumption was that they're going to be getting maybe 50 chats a day. And however, as soon as they opened up the channel, they had 200 chats per day. And so their workforce, which was already feeling overloaded, had a new channel of being overloaded. They then had to deal with, they opened up a channel on their website. Customers were using it, which is great, but the service level was very poor on it. And so that might soon become a dead channel. And then the customers are going to be calling back into the contact center, and they haven't even addressed the problem at hand. So those are some of the general problems that we're seeing that are driving people towards, embracing the new AI.
Yeah. And you're hitting on one other item there, which I didn't speak to, is the human cost in all of this, right? The attrition, the weight on employees, the weight on employee satisfaction.
Yes, absolutely. So, when I talk with customers in financial services, I often pick up they don't know where to start. They're certainly interested in AI, and I'm, go into listening mode. I'm like, well, tell me what you're looking at, and then, they start asking me a bunch of different questions all over the place, and I realize they don't know where to start. If you fall into this camp and you're going to be with a bunch of respected peers based on people that I've met, I recommend starting first with what hurts the most that you can measure. And then where is it happening in the customer journey? So clearly some of our customers are having issues with their self-service. Others are more interested in their employees to have more efficient workflows and to be better at managing the customer conversation they have. Others want to step back and look at all the conversations that are occurring in the contact center and try to understand what is going wrong in certain key places. It could be something as simple as transfers, which are easy to track, but ridiculously hard to categorize and tie down as to what the problem is. Or it could be about the effectiveness of a new financial product during sign up. And they want to understand, like, how is that going? Not based on whether, wins and losses, but strictly on what was being said. So the key is to make a cup of tea and not try to. Now, over here on this slide, here are three common AI use cases. You have agentic AI, augmentation, and automation. And the three, in different ways, all drive business impacts where you can reduce costs, boost revenue, and improve the customer experience. Now, agentic AI is like one of the brand new terms that are coming into the contact center. And the term, it refers to, and I asked ChatGPT to tell me this, and I streamlined it because I'm like, hey, might as well ask the source that's creating this. And agentic AI refers to advanced AI that's capable of independently making decisions and taking actions to achieve specific goals without human intervention. So, let's put that into an example. 5-9 customer, First Citizens Bank, they use AI agents, agentic AI, for voice in their digital channels, and they want to use it to provide self-service to check things that are very common, account balances, confirm a receipt of a loan payment, or update personal information, change passwords, or check application status. This is rather mundane work that most human agents, yes, they can do it, but is that the best use of their time? Another part of the AI agent, I think, is, and this is really where I was like, wow, it's really working, is the ability to do conversational routing. So I tested one of our AI agents and I said this to it. I acted like a customer calling in and I said, I am so hot under the collar about this phony baloney late fee. Who do I speak to? I intentionally made that really hard. Not only did I say, who do I speak to, which is jammed together, which can be very hard to actually understand what that meant. But the thing about generative AI is it has the ability to understand the inference of what is being implied and pick out key things like the word late fee and disregard things like hot under the collar. Traditional AI, which is very literal, might come back and tell me the weather in the local area when that is not at all the intent. What I'm doing is I'm expressing my sentiment and I'm giving an inference about a late fee. And that type of information, generative AI, is really, really good. So not only could it conversationally route me using my language and not forcing me to go through an IVR phone tree, but also when I am delivered to whoever I'm speaking to, it does have the ability to pass along the context of what I said so that the sentiment can go there too. So the person knows that, hey, they're dealing with someone who's coming in hot. You better be ready for that. Let's be prepared. So that's what agentic AI could be doing. It also has the ability to do things like frictionless authentication. One of the best use cases that I like is voice biometrics. The voice is my password. That is so easy to do. I don't need to remember a PIN code. And I also feel like it's me being me, which I think as you switch from face-to-face conversations over your financial services and products, and you're going over to more virtual conversations by phone, chat, email, maybe even video, you want to have these things that personalize the experience, such as my voice is my password. Other things that agentic AI can do is it can help you with payments and collections. I have seen studies that people are actually more comfortable talking about a late payment or their debt situation in simple Q&A by talking to a chatbot and getting that information back, which is much more easily accomplished with generative AI. That is from agentic AI. There's also what is known as augmentation. And this is where augmentation combines AI with human agents to streamline processes and integrate data, providing insights into trends and anomalies. So this is, like, I think, one of the strongest cases for AI. So for example, let's say a high value customer calls to dispute charges on their account. The AI can pull the information, the account information, either through a backend system or by listening and hearing it and then getting it and bringing it back. It can analyze the sentiment in real time. It can guide the agent through the resolution process. It can also check eligibility for programs like a new credit card. And these would all through listening in real time and then providing these guidance cards or guidance bubble up to use during the conversation. Other benefits that we've seen is that the 5.9 customer, Ocean First Bank, they had Agent Assist, like it was helping with their with their agents to talk to the customers about what they're asking for. But on the other side of the equation is that it certainly helped ramp up new agents, and it helped reduce agent attrition, which from talking with many customers seems to be like at its worst in quite some time. Lastly, automation. Automation is great for after the call, such as if the customer asks, like, where am I on this? And there was no resolution in the call, you can use automation to send, let's say, SMS to the customer, keeping them updated on like the loan application, or if this was a request for, like an insurance policy and make sure the claim works, you can send that information automatically. You're not requiring the agent to do all these additional things, which is really good. So you can use automation for like loan processing, fraud detection, account reconciliation, setting up auto payments or making payments. These are all things that could be possible. That I'm trying to move as fast as I can because I know we have additional slides. Chris, do you want to add anything?
No, I think everything you just went through is extremely interesting. We have observed that with some of our other customers as well that are in the collection space around, customers being a bit more enjoying the conversation a bit more when they're speaking to a virtual agent in early stage collections, right? And then what we want to observe is that there is a marriage here between what we need an agent for and what we want to use a human agent versus a virtual agent. Because what we have also observed is that in some of the late stage collections that we want to do, a virtual agent actually is not the best fit because people want to, usually there is a bit more of massaging that needs to happen around the payment structure. People need to feel a bit more heard and understood in what they're going through. But the early stages is great. And so I think with all of this, there's a different answer for different customer situations and different call types. And our ability to look at all of the traffic that is coming into the contact center and then be very specific around what tool, what use case we want to use for which call type. And that's what really leads to a lot of this business impact.
Sure. Okay, so the next slide is, so what we wanted to do here is kind of walk you through a use case that involves a customer calling about a fee on their bill. And, just kind of unpacking those 4 different use cases for using AI technology. We'll start with virtual agents, and then we'll move over to the regular human agents who are augmented with AI. And then we'll have the supervisor as well as the leader as in showing what they can do and what AI can do for them in terms of improving visibility and control. Now, for the virtual agent, you can see like in this diagram right here that the intent is to drive outcomes with dynamic human-like conversations with a seamless handoff to a human agent. So the conversation, which we captured over here, someone could be calling in, or they could be doing this by web chat or text or email even. is that, like you have the greeting, like good afternoon, thank you for contacting Wave Trust. How can I assist you today? And the nice thing, and one thing I do want to note is the voice of these agents. Oftentimes you have the ability to choose like what that should sound like to make sure that it represents your brand better. Now, the customer in this case says, I'm calling because I noticed a charge on my bill that I don't recognize and I'd like to dispute it. Okay. So there's some things right there that generative AI would be really, really good to capture. The one is that it's a charge on a bill. Okay. And I'd like to dispute it. So that right there is a red flag for a conversation that could go wrong. And the customer loyalty rates have never been more fragile in financial services than they are right now as the whole industry transitions towards greater online engagement. So the virtual voice agent responds, I understand, Saline. And you're through a phone number lookup, you can actually identify who that person is so that the personalization happens as soon as possible. I'll be sure to pull up your account details and go over the charges. To verify your account, could you please provide me with your account number or password, or you could use voice biometrics. And so this is a conversation that is happening between the virtual agent and the customer. And then right as this conversation gets escalated using their business rules, a summary is delivered. And what is great about that transfer summary is that you have the customer name, which the agent can immediately see. They're authenticated, so you know that this is who they are. And then it does a really good job of summarizing that conversation, a charge in the account that the customer doesn't recognize and wants to dispute, and talk about the late fee on the account. Good. So the agent is immediately prepared for this. And then there's other virtual agent actions that get tracked, such as they verified, they did the account details, and they submitted a dispute claim. And that third little item, that is one of the feedback points that I'm getting a lot from customers is in the starting paperwork and how valuable AI agents are in this one piece. Because that was like the big tripping point. Like in terms of, resolving a dispute claim, you're going to need the actual human being to look at it to understand what's going on. But starting that process can be a real tripping point and a place where bad experience starts for the customer. And in this case, the AI agent took it all on. So moving to the next part, let's talk about what it can do for agents. So for agents, using AI-powered agent assistance or augmentation, it allows agents to work smarter and faster throughout every conversation. Now, what I really like about this is that the agent isn't picking this customer up cold, having to re-authenticate. Am I talking to Saline? Like, that's just terrible customer experience. And it's like one of the reasons why I think customer loyalty is so fragile is because of, you just like every time I have to restate myself, you just feel further and further away from this brand that you want to identify and relate to and be loyal to. So what do we see here? You see that the AI agent had provided the policy overview of what by going into their knowledge base and coming back with the best answer. This is great for new agents who may need an update or a reminder about how this works, or it could be very helpful for obscure, let's say in this case, really obscure credit cards that you haven't been working with, but someone's been using for the last 5 years, and now they have the dispute. And so you could have a veteran agent who's not familiar and would normally have to put the customer on hold, which is bad customer experience. But in this case, the pop-up bubble explains what that is. The other thing that I like is on the upper right is that you have the sentiment. So it reminds that your employee that empathy is required. Expect, the customer sounds frustrated, make sure to apologize and let them know you're here to help, which is great in this era of fragile loyalty. And then below, you can see the transcript of the conversation of what was said. And then in the bottom, in the left of that blue bubble box is the call summary notes. And this call summary notes is, for me, a fascinating stumbling block that I came across when I was talking to different customers. I was amazed. I'm going to say 1 in 4 customers of ours stopped asking their agents to take notes on calls because the notes that they took were poor, and they thought it would just be a better use of their time to skip it all together and focus on your work or focus on the customer. And that creates this massive void of knowledge within your own CRM about what your customers are talking about and where things are going wrong or where things are going right. And so by using augmentation with AI agent assistance, they'll be the ability of generative AI to provide a summary within less than a minute is so impressive, because it's setting up this whole other area that was not there before, where you actually have accurate understanding of what actually happened going into the CRM, combined with the quality of the conversations that are also, tracked and captured and put into the system, which actually sets me up, Chris, for the next section on what AI can do for supervisors.
Yes, absolutely. Before we move on, I just had a couple questions for you, Jeff. I think the example that you gave on authentication for a virtual agent is so relevant, right? Also the handoff to a real agent. Nothing is more infuriating than when you spend 5-10 minutes on a phone tree and then you get handed off to an agent and they say, what can I help you with today? And don't seem to have any background as to your previous actions. Given that, would you say almost every customer has some form of a virtual agent use case that either they are or are not taking advantage of today?
Oh, yes. And I think that may be one of the challenges is, being prepared for all that it could be doing. And so then, having to start prioritizing what you want maybe versus what some of your peers may want that the AI agents can take on. It's very interesting. In other words, if your bank knows or your, bank, insurer, lender, wealth manager, if you know exactly what you guys want, great, you can move quite quickly. But I've often seen competing agendas, and that's quite normal. And so it's really important to be on the same page for both the business users and the IT users about what is necessary.
Absolutely. The other thing I wanted to call out on this slide, because I think it really clearly demonstrates our second slide or our third slide, where we talked about impact in the contact center having effects throughout the entire business. Take just the knowledge assist in this case, right? So we are generating knowledge assistance for an agent in real time at the time that the customer asks the question. We are providing a response that is anchored on the most current data in the knowledge base. So what does this mean? It prevents agents from giving incorrect information. As you said, it also prevents agents from putting customers on hold. What both of those things do is it increases customer satisfaction and increases first call resolution. So in both cases, we have happier customers that are calling in less, that you're preserving your brand image in the face of a customer that may be unhappy, right, when they're calling in the first place, and you're building customer loyalty. And that's where we start to see the impact from the contact center having far-reaching implications well beyond those four walls. We'll move on to the next section here, talking about supervisors. And when we went through some of the earlier customer stories at both Snap Finance and the U.S. bank the bank in the U.S. that I mentioned previously, we really highlighted the job of supervisors and how difficult of a job it is to do today. Picture, if you will, you are managing 15 agents on the floor, and you're meeting with them weekly, and you're trying to improve their performance towards some KPI that you may or may not know on the conversation level, right? So what that means is you might have an agent that is poorly performing on a KPI, and you can't even really identify which calls are the culprits for that poor performance. What's more, even if you could identify on a per call basis that negative KPI, it's nearly impossible to dissect that and figure out what behaviors are driving a positive outcome and being adhered to or not. So introduce AI into that equation, and you get supervisors. You get folks that are being told what to coach, not just based on where is an agent falling short, but where are you going to get the most bang for your buck, right? So let's say that an agent is not closing the call properly, but they are also asking poor discovery questions in the front of the call. And we find that even though they're not closing the call properly. Much worse than not asking the discovery questions. Those discovery questions actually have a bigger impact on the outcome we're trying to drive. And so we can marry all of that data together into a platform that's going to allow supervisors to coach much more easily and be told what to coach on, which if you speak to supervisors, and I speak to quite a few of them, it is the dream for them. They frequently feel like they're bobbing for apples, trying to figure out what to work with agents on their weekly sessions on. The final persona here is leaders. So leaders are making decisions every day for their business based on their perception of customers' views of their products and their company at large. Also, most relevant, the performance of the contact center. And in the sea of data that we talked about previously, without strong outcome identifiers or really organization, that understanding of what's happening could be very misconstrued. I'll give you an example here. So many customers I talk to rely on survey data to get an understanding of what their customers think of them, their products. But actually, I really believe that everything you need to know can be found in the unstructured data in the contact center. All of these phone calls where customers are dropping little tidbits about what's important to them, their feelings on products or services that you offer, or the brand at large. Additionally, competitors. All we have to do is add a layer of organization on top of that. And suddenly you have a picture that is much more relevant than any survey data you could have had previously, because it's from a representative sample of your customers and a significant number of conversations. And so this, I think, is a huge unlock. And I see executives at a lot of our customers logging in every day, checking these dashboards, looking for trends and anomalies that come up. Because just because you know the types of calls that are coming into your contact center today doesn't mean those will be the same ones of tomorrow. And how are you going to quickly respond to changes in your customer base if you don't have that sense of emerging trends or anomalies in the conversations? So that's the fourth persona that we really drive in, and hope that this walkthrough here gives you a sense of, on the ground floor, how is AI changing the way that a contact center can operate? And we'll bring this to life here with actually a shared customer of ours, Jeff, which is Opportune. So Opportune is a financial services company. And what I will say about Opportune is their forward-looking, their ability to look forward and embrace new technology is fantastic. The way they've dove into bringing in the latest technology to better support their customers and their employees is truly second to none. And I'm constantly impressed by how hard they drive at integrating new technology into their business. But when they came to us, they had a lot of the same problems that many customers have. They were experiencing a lot of growth, and at that time weren't able to keep up with the QA, the manual QA that they were doing at that time. So doing QA or QM on a single-digit percentage of calls coming into the contact center, and using those results to extrapolate the performance of agents, of teams, and of the contact center at large. And it wasn't representative, and they were seeing the consequences of that, which is just a poor understanding of what's actually happening. And it leads to increased agent attrition, decreased agent satisfaction, because agents feel that their work is not well understood, right? And if leadership is not understanding what's happening on the ground, it's going to lead to a lot of disgruntled folks. And so Opportune rolled out some new technology. So they actually really transformed their entire contact center. They began doing automated QA first and foremost. What that means is they took their existing QA scorecard, translated it into something that can be workable by an AI in the background in an automated fashion. And all of a sudden, their QA coverage went from single digits to 100%, all while cutting the human costs of QA by 50%. which is just fantastic, right? You've got a representative sample and you've cut costs. And the outcome of this is that coaches know what to coach on. QA teams are providing data that is relevant to agents. And one of the things that I've seen when we do launch an automated QA service like this is the types of conversations that happen between agents and the QA team change a lot, right? So before, it almost got contentious because so much of what is being graded is subjective. And even though the QA team can calibrate frequently and they do a great job in doing that, there is still the human element is going to beg for a bit of contention, right? And so that there's even a dispute policy in a lot of contact centers because of that. Now, when you introduce a totally neutral party in an AI doing this QA, it changes the nature of the way that agents work with their QA teams. And that leads to increased agent satisfaction and better coaching. And then supervisors on the back end of this, they can take those QA scorecards and be able to do the coaching that goes beyond what Agent Assist can do. So again, in the case of Opportune, they started by automating their QA scorecard. But if we have an automated QA scorecard, why not expose that to the agents in real time? Why not give them the answers to the test as they're taking it? Which is what they've done. And that's truly what Agent Assist does. It's telling the agents what they need to do at each stage of the conversation. And so now you have agents that feel more supported and they feel that they are not exiting a call guessing, how am I going to get graded on this call? What is going to be the outcome? They know right during the call whether they have checked the box or not. And when they don't check the box, and that has become a systematic thing where maybe they continue to fail at showing empathy, for example, that's when we have a coach step in and work with them and do mock exercises and role play exercises to get them over the hump. And what's really cool, one of the things that Opportune does, even with their coaching, is that they're using Cresta for actually doing all of their coaching scorecards, right? And their coaching one-on-one sessions. And every coaching session is tied to a behavior. What am I trying to work on with the agent that week? And what we'll do, because you've indicated what behavior you're coaching on, we will track over the next 30 days the improvement in that behavior in a very simple place where the agent can see and the supervisor can see. So again, it kind of takes this world where coaching could feel so tone deaf and so non-productive and turn it into something that is has a community feel to it and is really going to produce an outcome that positively impacts the company at large. Jeff, I don't know if you have anything to add to this story, but great.
Yeah. I did. I seem to be really harping on the difference between IVR and IVAs, intelligent virtual agents, or better known as AI agents. They actually had a really nice quote, and he said, they use Five9 AI agent, and they said it's a game changer. We launched it as a pilot and put together very aggressive goals from a success criteria of authentication, the amount of time spent navigating through the traditional IVR. And because of the ability of AI agent to conversationally talk with the customers about what they want, they radically improved both, the time spent navigating along with reduced transfers. And that's just a better customer experience.
And that's what we want at the end of the day. That's a great quote, Jeff. Do you want to take us home here?
So yeah, let's bring it on home. So, tips for success from talking with customers about their use of AI in financial services. I said this in the beginning, make a cup of AI tea. Don't try to boil the ocean. Just understand, is it one thing or is it multiple systems? What you're where you're having that pain point, is it measurable, which is really, really key, because you can start bringing people together about the impact once it's measurable. The other thing is generative AI requires fine tuning and updates as your business evolves. And many people may not anticipate this, but we've seen the greatest success when after deployment, you're going to have to, like what you're getting is generic, and you're going to have to fine tune the models to make sure that they understand your business, the language of your business. And Central Bank, they had one of the highest success rates in matching customer intent. This is from 2 years ago, which was 80%. And that was because they did regular scheduled fine tuning. And if my memory serves me correctly, I was having a coffee with their technical account manager from Five9, and he said that actually marketing interns were the ones who were doing the work, if I remember that correctly, which I need to run down. But it gives you a sense of basically people with no skills can go in there to start fine tuning the models to make sure that they do work. Other changes that do need to happen is that all businesses evolve. So if you're adding a new service or product, there will be new descriptive language. So you're going to have to adjust for that. And then also fraud. Fraud is like, maybe this might be the year of generative AI, but soon afterward, I think the next year will be the year of fraud. And that is a increasing problem. And so fine tuning your models to be able to be prepared to look for fraud is a very good thing to do. Last one is the transformation is crucial. You really should be prepared to be transformed. And I base this on two observations. One is that at CCW over the summer, I've never seen so many community credit unions coming into the Five9 booth to talk about generative AI. And, my experience is that this is like the most conservative, frugal crowd of IT buyers. If they're not going to pay for anything that they cannot build or from scratch or cannot go without. And they wouldn't be asking all these questions if they weren't hearing through their peer networks about what generative AI can do. Another example would be, let's say this is, well, actually, I already mentioned this about call summaries and the transformation, like how one in four customers, contact centers are not requiring agents to upload, and they started adding the conversations and the call summaries into their CRMs. And now what happened is they have this wealth of data that was never there before. So they went in the direction of making sure that the customer agent conversations were better through the use of AI. They had not anticipated what would happen now that they had all this data that you can use, like in the steps that Chris Reese was just talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah, like tips for success: make a cup of AI tea, prepare for fine tuning, and prepare to be transformed.
And I love that last point, Jeff, the prepare to be transformed. I want to add one little tidbit onto that. Every customer is going through this transformation right now, right? Every company has already begun or will be beginning soon the transformation in AI. And what I see the most successful companies do is say, let's let it all loose, right? Let's open the doors, and we are not committed to any process that happens today. Let's see how we can transform any process. And the example I have, we work with a luxury car retailer in the US, and they leverage our Cresta insights quite a bit, right? So they're constantly looking for insights in the conversations that they have access to. And the logical thing is, let me use these insights to make decisions for the contact center, right? But what they actually did, they do that, but what they did in addition is turned on a spigot they organize customer insights in a product specific way. And they actually send all of those insights back over to their product team who is building out new cars. And so when they just released a very high-end brand new car this year, hybrid version, they looked to insights from the contact center to understand what's working and what isn't, and actually are baking that into the next model. And that is just not a logical thing. And when you think about a company that's been around for a while, it's actually very difficult to turn on that stream of data and have it respected by the team that is now going to be the receiving end of it. But those customers that are thinking outside the box and really trying to harness this are going to be the ones that have really separate from the pack over the next 10 years. So thank you, Jeff. This has been awesome. Really great discussion. Really enjoyed having it. I believe we're going to have a call to, we do have a question here from Jamie, so what would you say are the top reasons businesses are hesitant to choose not to implement AI? Jeff, do you want to take a stab at that first?
Um, they don't know where to start. The IT department is not on the same page as the contact center, because when those two departments are together, like everything moves quite quickly. So I'd say that would be the primary reason. I can't stress this. I've never seen a technology have this much transformation potential in my 20 years in contact center. So like it has to be a lack of agreement on priorities. That would be my first guess. Chris?
Yeah. You know, another one I'll say that I do run into a lot is this notion of build versus buy. And because so many customers or so many people have access to Chat GPT today and you know, all the other large language models and are leveraging it, they say, you know, maybe I can build this in-house. And I do. I speak to a lot of customers that have taken a run at building something in-house, and some are successful with doing very small kind of slivers of this. And I would recommend that in a building scenario, you do carve off one little sliver that you're really going to work on. But we like to say at Cresta that the difference between success with this technology and failure is razor thin. And it's all about adoption. It's all about getting teams using the technology, and the ease of use is critical. It really is. The speed with which guidance is being given to agents, given to supervisors, given to leaders, all of that is extremely difficult to do and makes a big difference for whether you're going to be successful with rolling out AI or not. So to answer the question in another way, I would also say a lot of companies are trying to take a run at building it themselves first, and that can cause a bit of delays. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm very happy that anytime I'm speaking to a customer that has gotten past the legal and any legal and security concerns that they may have within their business and is starting to embrace the technology, because we all know we're going to get there at some point in the near future. So it always makes me feel good to hear that people are on their journey. And we do have a call to action on the screen here. If you would be looking for follow-up about Cresta, how Cresta and Five9 can help you apply AI to drive the results you need for your business, please feel free to click the button here. We'll also, I believe, be following up with an email for any attendee on the webinar today. Thank you all so much for joining this. Jeff, can't thank you enough. Great to see you. Sure. And hope everyone has a great rest of the day, and we'll be speaking with you again soon.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, everyone.